Pythons inflated to death in Vietnam. Crocodiles, they're just skinned. A monkey-free coconut milk, but not from Thailand. In the Philippines, COVID shuts down the country. But who cares for the animals? Especially if the volcano in Taal erupts again. What's PETA Asia up to? That's next on the PETA Podcast. Welcome to the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo, your host for this inside look at PETA, the largest animal rights organization in the world. On today's episode, PETA Asia's been busy, looking out for the animals, often in places where there's no one else who will show up. It's all in a day's work for PETA's Jason Baker, Senior Vice President in charge of PETA Asia. He came back to the U.S. for a visit when COVID struck, but couldn't get back to his home base in the Philippines. Now in Hawaii, Baker's in charge of international investigations that have exposed the Asian skin trade in Vietnam. Crocodiles and snakes, especially pythons, who are literally inflated to death. In Thailand, PETA investigators went after coconut growers who used monkey labor to pick coconuts. It means when you shop for coconut milk or coconut water, you want something that's monkey-free. Chowco is one brand to avoid, and wouldn't you know, I saw it on my grocer's shelf today. Baker also updates us on the Philippine volcano, Mount Taal. PETA rescued animals from Taal before COVID hit. Now there's talk of a new eruption, and COVID has only made helping animals in the Philippines even more difficult all throughout the country. Meanwhile, in West Asia, PETA sent an investigator to check out how animals were affected by that snafu on the Suez Canal. It's not easy being in charge of Asia from east to west. Here's my conversation with PETA's Jason Baker, PETA Senior VP in charge of PETA Asia. We began by talking about those pythons on the PETA Podcast.
Our latest investigation is from Vietnam, and one of the things that the pandemic brought to us was a really difficulty in getting around, obviously. And with most people are just used to difficulties getting around their own country, but we actually had to try to get in and out of Vietnam during COVID. So that presented its own problem. What we found when we were able to get in there so Vietnam is the main country that produces python skins, that farms pythons, kills them for their skins. Mm-hmm. When they kill them, they put rubber bands around the snake's anus, and they put a rubber band over their mouths, and then they pump them full of air. They use an air compressor, like you're blowing up a tire. I was just changing a tire on a bike, and I thought this is just like how they're killing these pythons. And they literally inflate them to death.
Just to make sure we get the picture, the pythons are dead already, or they're alive?
They're alive.
Oh, they're alive.
They're alive, and they inflate them to death. It's shocking. It's like, I've been doing this nearly 30 years, and I still get shocked by this. Like, who would have thought? Like, even if I used my imagination, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Well, now what they do, once again, they put a rubber band around the anus and a rubber band around the mouth,
mm-hmm.
and then
they insert, just like you're pumping up your bike tire, they insert a nozzle in, and they inflate with a compressor. They actually stand on them. I don't know if that is to loosen the skin or to get them to die sooner. I think it's actually to loosen the skin.
Jason, why wouldn't they wait and maybe, allow them to die and then pump them up? Why wouldn't they do it is there a feeling that if they pump them up while they're alive, then it's a natural skin or something?
I think it's just easier to extract the skin if they can do it while they're alive. And I think it's probably less bloody to do it that way, less effort. It's in one go. They kill them with the heads and still on.
Well, wait a minute. So they apply the rubber bands to the mouth and the anus. They pump them up. Mm-hmm. They're still alive, the python, and then do they pump them up to expand the skin? Is that it? All right. So,
Yep. Yep.
and then do they skin them while they're still alive?
And then, that the theory is that kills them in the process.
Oh.
Although we saw their tails, we saw one of the when we were documenting it, saw one of them have their tail removed. But yeah, they put them on their backs and they slice them open. Just literally slice them right down the center of them, and then extract the skin that way. They take the body out, then start processing the skin.
So this is a standard practice that's been going on for.
It is. We sent it to a veterinarian who knew snakes and said this wasn't the first time he had seen this, that it was definitely not humane, but definitely not uncommon. Of course, that's something that the industry doesn't want people to know about.
Yeah.
So it's that's talked about.
So the industry, is this I mean, how significant is the python snake skin trade coming out of Vietnam? Is this pretty much
Vietnam is the number one producer of pythons. So if you're getting a bag from Louis Vuitton or wherever, the likelihood that this is from Vietnam is high. You shouldn't buy pythons from anywhere. But one of the tricks that they will try to say that it's not from Vietnam is they'll say, well, this is an Italian bag. But the reality is the snakes can be raised and killed in Vietnam, but if they stitch the bag in Italy, they call it an Italian bag. And that's what happens is if you look, you don't actually see any python bags or boots or wallets from Vietnam. They all say Italy or the UK or wherever. But the reality is the skins, the vast majority of them come from Vietnam.
And so do you think people are fooled, or do you think this is just the way to mask the cruelty and mask the pain of this?
I never know, because I feel like I am such the optimist sometimes when it comes to the way that the industry is going to treat animals, and I'm always wrong. But I think of myself as being like the public. You just assume they're doing something kinder. You just assume, and so that's why we go in, because we need to show it. They don't talk about it, and usually when they don't talk about it, something is going on. And even when they do, there are times we've gone into places and I've looked at the company's Facebook, their farm pictures on their Facebook, and I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad. And we go in and it's terrible. And so it's education. This is why we do what we do.
Yeah. And this company, this is happening to this one company. Do they service a lot of the designers?
We don't fully know, because the skins for the most part go to China first for more processing, and then they go elsewhere. So we tracked it to the skins to a few different countries, but the vast majority go to Vietnam. And our point wasn't even who gets them, because this is so standard. So we wanted people to know, just matter of factly, that this is, if you're looking at buying python, please watch this.
And so once again, your bag could be from Italy or France or wherever, but they will get their python from Asia, and more than likely from Vietnam after it's been to China. So it might be sold as Chinese python, or it may be actually the product that gets sent to the designer or the manufacturer is from China.
This is global trade. This happens with wool. Yeah. The people will say it's an Italian sweater or whatever, and it's usually from, if it's merino, it's usually from Australia, could be from New Zealand. And so they try to say, well, this isn't, in the shearing industry, which again, when we went in, we thought it was going to be far kinder than it actually is. And what you find is that they get punched and they're bloody and they're cut, and it is a really traumatic, violent experience when they're shearing a sheep. And again, but it's that same thing where people will be, oh, well, I'm not going to buy Australian, I'll buy Italian, or I'll buy British, and it's the same thing that it.
Yeah. Well, tell us about what people can do to fight this practice. You did the investigation.
So we did a second one too. While we were doing it, we were also looking at crocodiles. And the interesting part about this one is, so here we found them also. These are about 5 to 6 foot long crocodiles, and they would tape their mouths. They put them in sacks and threw them in a room. So literally, the video you see is a room full of crocodiles in sacks, and a guy goes around with a car battery on his back and a cord coming out, and he's electrocuting these crocodiles with a car battery. Again, veterinarians will tell you this isn't going to kill them. It might stun them. It's not going to stop them from feeling pain. And then here again, they then flip the crocodiles over and slice them open from their bellies, all potentially fully feeling the pain of this. The interesting part of this side of the event, and this is all Vietnam again, the interesting side of this investigation was we had actually asked the farmer to show us how good his place was. And the footage he sent was what he was showing as best practice. And if this is what you show to say this is the good stuff, what does the bad stuff look like? Wow. So it was just, shocking. Like that. This is what you show to impress someone.
So what is the action that PETA is taking to try to stop this or try to curtail this practice?
Our number one is always education. It's always about teaching people how to use their pocketbooks to help animals and to not buy it. And we hope that our members and people who are listening now or are seeing the video share it and educate others. We also have a corporate relations department, and we're trying to push companies like Louis Vuitton is the main one to stop using it.
Yeah.
And we try to sit down with their CEOs and their designers and just get them to change. That doesn't always happen. We have been very successful with fur over the last 2 years on major brands who I did the PETA campaign in the US from in the late 90s, like 94 through 98, 99, and everyone used it then. And so to see how far we've come with so many brands giving it up. So we continue. We if it's not this time that the brand gives it up, maybe it's next time. We keep educating them, but sort of two-pronged. We've also filed a complaint in Vietnam with the authorities, but given animal welfare laws and the efforts made on them in Vietnam and in Asia in general, I wouldn't expect a response, much less when I expect any action.
So people can go to our website. We'll put the links, and they can see the video for both the crocodiles and the alligator. So for both the crocodiles and the python. But is Louis Vuitton the big brand in both areas?
They are. They use both. They really need to reevaluate, look at going vegan and using vegan materials. So yeah, they are.
Yeah. So avoid the LV products and go to PETA.org, and we'll get people to the action form there for.
Yeah, you can also look at PETAAsia.com too. Right. If you're interested in anything Asian wise, PETA Asia's website, focuses on the things we have going in Asia.
Oh, that's right. PETAAsia.com. Let me bring up two issues we talked about. One was the coconut milk story with the monkeys. Tell us about a follow-up on that. We had monkeys being exploited to go fetch the coconut for companies that are exporting coconut milk.
Yeah. So what we found was in an investigation. Oh, that's over a year old now. That one of the main brands, or actually a couple of the main brands, but mainly Choco, we caught farmers admitting that the monkeys that were being used to pick coconuts were picking for their brand, and it's been a pretty huge impact in the industry in the, I guess, almost 18 months since we did our first investigation. We have done a second. So along the way, some companies like Target and Walmart have stopped selling Chowco. We did a second investigation 2 months ago, I guess, a month ago. 2 months, I lose track. And what we did was we went back to farms and we asked them again, sort of about the inspections that the industry is claiming that they have and the inspections that the government is talking about. And basically the farmers told us that they don't really come around. And when they do, they give them advance notice and they just lie to them. And so while the industry is potentially being lied to, they're allowing themselves to be lied to. If PETA, who has one person in Thailand, can figure this out, certainly a multi-million-dollar company, if they're serious about finding things, can figure this out, and the government can figure it out. And so part of what they're doing is they're just making sure the monkeys aren't there when inspectors come. But at the same time, there has been a shakeup in the industry. If people watch in the next day or two, there'll be a new video that is coming out. We just rescued, along with a local wildlife group in Thailand, we rescued one monkey who was a coconut picking monkey, and he had his chain around his neck embedded into his skin. And he's now going off to live on a sanctuary that we're funding. And what we're being told by people who have these monkeys is that they're not in demand like they were.
Yeah,
that is a big step forward. That is the step that we need to happen next.
What people need to understand is that the monkeys were kind of being used or exploited twice. They were used to show, oh, look how cute these monkeys are. So it was kind of like almost like an entertainment thing. And then they were used to be the workers. They were exploited to pick the coconuts. I was wondering why didn't I don't know if there are labor unions in Thailand or at least worker groups, why weren't they upset? Because the monkeys were clearly cutting in on, maybe people's livelihoods.
Yeah, they're definitely not organized enough that way in Thailand. And that is a good point, though. I agree. And there's an additional factor in their exploitation is that a lot of them are actually taken from the wild. So they're taken from their families, which is the first detrimental thing, and then kept on chains in a backyard or to a tree. And yeah, sometimes they do go off and become, after they've been picking for a while, go off and become entertainment monkeys. They go to monkey shows. And what is interesting is that the monkey picking used to be something that the government and the travel industry advertised. Yeah. And it wasn't until someone said, no, we don't agree with this. This is wrong, that they suddenly were like, they're trying to backpedal as best they can. They've taken down their some of the features they had on their web, their travel, the Ministry of Tourism had on their website about how fun it is to watch monkeys picking coconuts. So they're having to readjust, and I get that things don't happen overnight, and especially in Thailand. And we're looking at progress, and we're trying to build trust, and that's not easy with us because we trust when we see results.
Yeah.
We don't trust before then. So I would tell people who are looking at coconut milk, the number one thing, the easiest thing is if they're not in Thailand, if the coconut milk is not in Thailand, it's extremely slim chances that a monkey picked the coconut. We'd only found a couple examples, something just south of Thailand and one other. It's rare. So it used to be common 30, 40 years ago. It used to be common in India. India outlawed it. So now it's just there.
There are alternatives. You don't need to have the monkeys pick. It's kind of like a sentimental novelty or some kind of unique thing that they think was a thing that they could market or highlight, but they're finding out that it's not.
Exactly.
So people can just avoid what?
I mean, it's difficult if it says Thailand, and there's so much to it, and I don't want to confuse people because they actually bring in Vietnamese coconut milk and market it as Thai coconut milk, even though it's not, and it's monkey free. And so they used to use it. Being from Thailand used to be a positive selling mark, and now they're finding it a difficult selling mark. But so the first thing is to look and see if it's from Thailand or not. If it's not, because a lot of it, the stuff from Starbucks I know is from Indonesia, and that's fine. So and I think Thailand is actually only the 7th biggest coconut milk producer in the world. So it's not the number one. So the chances are your coconut milk is not from Thailand, but higher end stuff tends to be marketed towards as being Thai.
But
and then you look to see if what they've labeled it as. We're not giving out. We have a monkey free label that has a few products on it. Only a couple from Thailand. There's a Nature's Choice that is from Thailand, but we're not giving out clearances until people can prove 100% to us that they're not being lied to.
Basically, avoid Thai coconut milk.
That's the reality.
Yeah, I mean, they're not. It's not the largest producer from Asia to the world. The goal is to get monkey-free coconut milk, and Thailand is not monkey-free.
Right,
okay.
Right, and there is a lot that is monkey-free, but it's hard for them to show it, and so it's an industry in flux right now, and trust is difficult. And you can have monkey-free picking one day, and then they can use monkeys the next season. So a lot of trust, a lot of the industry. Basically, the industry never went and checked forever. And so these companies who, Chowco was sponsoring Liverpool football soccer club in the UK before. And so they've got lots of money to market out there. The one last thing before we leave this subject that I will tell people is coconut water does not come from the same kind of coconuts.
Oh, yeah.
So there's the tad bit of water that can be monkey picked, but for the most part, it's not. And there is a company like Harmless Harvest who's been great, and they took us around and showed us their place, and they're totally monkey free. And basically, it comes from smaller trees.
So coconut water, okay, especially even the coconut water from Thailand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coconut milk or things that use the coconut meat, not coconut oil. Even at the best of times, coconut oil is not good for you.
All right. So be careful and go to PETAAsia.com once again and get the latest on their investigation. Now, just 2 more subjects I want to touch on. One, we did a story with you a podcast on the volcano, Mount Taal, and its eruption. And apparently it's showing signs again of possible eruption.
Yeah, there's quakes happening, and they're getting a bit more severe every week. We just went through and prepared as if it's going to blow any day. We had a discussion picking up supplies. The worst that happens is we bought a bunch of stuff that we don't need. But what we found from last time, while I praise everyone of our staff who just threw everything into it and jumped and were working long hours every single day for months, we could have been quicker the first 2 days if we'd had everything in the car ready to go. So that our goal is to be able to be there quicker. It's kind of funny when disasters happen, everyone is leaving and we're trying to get in. So if we can be there quicker, if we can help people get out, if we can help people take their animals out right in the beginning. Part of the problem was that so many people left animals. So we don't want that to happen again.
Well, this was the story when we did it the first time. The volcano blew. People had to rescue animals. PETA went in there, did rescue some animals, took some out. In the meantime, did the animals go back, and now that's what you have to worry about? What is the threat from the new volcano eruption?
Right. So the island is still off limits to tourists. So the first time around, we helped get all the horses out. We're not in favor of the horse riding that was happening there, but at the same time, we're also not in favor of them dying slowly from inhaling hot ash. So we did everything we could to get all the animals off. Some people have gone back to the island, but not many. So the overall island itself effort won't be very big. And yeah, PETA went in. We were really the only ones who went in, and we took countless trips, 3 to 4 every single day for 2 months, getting the animals off. And it does scare you every time you go over. Anytime there's a quake on the island, you're not sure if it's going to erupt while you're on it. So the bigger issue is all these homes around the lake. So for people who aren't quite following, the volcano is in the middle of a lake. So, and it's a sort of mountainous area. It's a nice, very nice area. It's where wealthy go on weekends. So you have all these nice homes surrounding the lake, and a lot of people left their animals. A lot. So our part of it is to we'll have to go to the island and see who is there, and then it's a big area. It's a big lake. Going home to home to see if who was left, and the problem is if they leave them outside with a bowl of water and it erupts, ash fills the water. They have no water, so it's not even. Yeah, and then we've done a lot since the last volcano. All of the local government officials have our number now, so they could call us for help. We can get around much easier.
But here's the thing, Jason. It looks like who would do this if PETA wasn't there to help the animals from Mount Taal?
Well, yeah, there are other groups who are smaller. They mean well. They don't have the full-time people like we do. We love them, but there's something about when you work for PETA, how you are more of a risk taker, basically, and so the discussion we're having is going through the nightmare of a year ago with COVID attached to it, because we never stopped doing animal rescues in the Philippines when most everybody else shut down, and I understand why the others couldn't do that. And it was difficult for us. We had to get permits and at times walk several miles to get a dog. And so we will still have to do that, and it will still be really difficult. But the Philippines has just gone back into an extreme lockdown. And one of my staff had dengue a couple weeks ago, and someone who is constantly in contact with people, has had many COVID tests from the interactions she's had with people who were then positive. She has not, but in having dengue and having her tests, she called around to hospitals because she thought she was going to need a bed. And the 12 hospitals that were closest, that basically cover Metro Manila, none of them had a bed available. So it's a difficult time. It is a very difficult time right now for our staff in the Philippines and the Filipinos in general.
I heard about the lockdown. They've stopped gatherings. No religious ceremonies. Apparently, it's that severe. What has been the problem in the Philippines? Did they not take the virus seriously, or do they not distance, or because it's poor? Generally, you have a lot of people who live in very, very dense housing situations.
All of the above.
Yeah.
It was difficult. There was when I left, it was in lockdown, and that's difficult for a lot of people, especially when they don't have any money and it's poor. The thing that is different from the Philippines versus somewhere like Vietnam, that has similar economic systems, is that Vietnam was fantastic at shutting down everything for a short period of time and then contact tracing. The Philippines never had contact tracing. And so Vietnam, I mean, I look at Vietnam. Vietnam did such a great job, and they're really have it under control. And it shows you that you don't need money. You don't need to be Taiwan, where everyone has a phone app to cover everyone, and tons of officials checking everyone out and testing. You don't need to have all that. You just needed to stop it for a short amount of time and then contact trace like crazy. And they didn't have that. And it's poor. The vaccine's not getting there. There's lots of things.
Well, it's affecting PETA's efforts too. I mean, you mentioned the staffer with dengue fever, and there's a lot of need for people with animals right now in the Philippines proper, not just in Taal, but in the city of Metro Manila.
Yeah, and we're the only ones that will go out. I have to say, two of our staffers did get COVID about 6-7 months ago, and they were ended up being fine. Luckily, they were young, but it's a huge concern. I lose sleep over all of this. Yeah, because we are the only ones that go out when there's an emergency call, and so difficult. And it's just how you keep on going through. We make our staff look like they're in hazmat suits sometimes to try to protect them. We're not concerned about what you look like. It's about staying safe. You know, you also have to deal with issues that sick dogs bring, and how you can have an outbreak of parvo or something at the vet at the same time, and that's happened to us during this whole thing. And yeah, I can't. I just the days, the difficult days. One of our staff who had dengue just this last week had food poisoning, and it's someone who difficult times.
Well, it's funny, well, not really funny. It's sad, really, because you cover all of Asia as the head of PETA Asia from the Philippines. You can't even get into the Philippines now because the airports are closed, and the flights to the Philippines are few and far between. So you're monitoring all this from the Pacific. You're in Hawaii, but we talked about the pythons in Vietnam. We talked about the coconut milk story in Thailand. We got Taal, possibly about Taal, the volcano, possibly erupting. We have normal people with dogs in just Metro Manila, and how very few people are out there helping save some of these dogs. And you have the lockdown from COVID. So you got your hands full there, Jason.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not even. I mean, we didn't even talk about the west side, and we have a whole clinic treating donkeys in Petra, outside of Petra. That was brings a whole nother lockdown. Took away tourists, took away everyone's money, and suddenly we are the only group in southern Jordan helping animals. And all the groups pulled out except so there wasn't really much going anyways. And so we had to, while everyone's leaving, try to get vets to come in and be basically in the middle in a desert, trying to help hundreds of donkeys who didn't have treatment before. And we were at the Suez Canal today trying to see what was going on with the 20 live export ships that were stuck there. The main ship has now been moved, and boats are getting through the Suez again, but they were stopped for a week, and so we had to be there to see. We were in contact with one ship, with one exporter, who said they had about 5 more days of animal food and water left. They will make it to the port before then. But there's lots to do. There's lots to do.
PETA Asia, very busy, lots of investigations, and people can check it out. Check out the investigations, especially on the ones that we've talked about, the pythons, the crocodiles, the coconut milk, and also the situation, the follow-up situation in Mount Taal. But Jason, before I let you go, Jason, I want to say I appreciate your efforts. What kind of toll does this take on you personally? Because you've been trying to get back to the Philippines for, I guess, a good 8 months now. And how are you keeping your spirits up about fighting for the animals while you still have to fight for yourself?
I've tried to use this to explain to others how lucky we are that we can do this, and how even the things that I hate. I don't want to be here in Hawaii. I'm not suffering in Hawaii, but this isn't where my work is. This isn't what I'm passionate about. And I lost my apartment. Couldn't bring anything back with me. I literally left with 5 shirts and 1 pair of pants. And regret. I would love to have brought so much more stuff with me, and I had to basically start over. And unfortunately, this isn't the first time I've had to start over. I got kicked out of India for causing problems to the leather industry some 20 years ago. So difficult. And I try to keep explaining to others, because this is, so many people are having a hard time. And some just have to work from home. And I lost my home, and I would love to get back to a routine. But I think that what keeps me going is just watching how the PETA Asia, the PETA staff works so hard in general. And then when this happened, things became more difficult, and it just meant that they were working harder. Mm-hmm. And so that is what brings me a lot of joy and a lot of, I just keep telling everyone, this is so terrible, but look how lucky we are that we can keep doing this. And so that's what I get from it. I look forward to going back to normal, whatever that new normal is. But there's, COVID has shown us some things that we didn't realize. There's a lot of wildlife who are having a great time this year, because hunting isn't happening, and a lot of just day before yesterday, another zoo we learned about in Thailand is shutting because they're out of money. And this is great.
Yeah.
So there are benefits.
The silver lining. Well, listen, Jason, I appreciate you sharing the updates on what's going on in PETA Asia, and it's always good talking to you. Jason Baker, PETA Asia, thank you very much for being on the PETA podcast.
Thank you. Good. Thanks for having me.
Jason Baker, PETA Senior VP in charge of PETA Asia. For more about the pythons and the crocodiles and the skin trade in Vietnam, for the coconut milk monkeys in Thailand, the fear of another volcanic eruption in Taal in the Philippines, and the animals at the Suez Canal, go to PETA Asia, that's PETAASIA.com for more. And that's our show this time out. Don't forget to send a link of this show to your friends. Let them listen. Thank them for listening. And I thank you for listening. Yeah, you can contact us at PETA.org. You can find me on Twitter at Emil Amok. That's EMILAMOK. Or on AMOK.com. Or you can see my work at the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. That's at ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog. Once again, thank you for listening. Check out all our episodes on your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts, where you can rate and review the show. It helps get the word out about the issues you care about. Our music is provided by Carbon Works. Check them out on YouTube. And join us again next time for more insight into animal rights and the fight for a cruelty-free world on the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo.